There's a reason so many people warn you about picking up hitchhikers. My dad used to say, you never know who you're letting into your car or what they're running from. I always thought he was being dramatic until the night I learned just how true those words could be. My name is Kevin, and I'll never forget the night I picked up a stranger on a lonely stretch of highway and how everything changed after that. It was late October, and I was driving home from a friend's wedding in another state. The reception had run late, and by the time I hit the road, it was already past midnight. The highway was empty, just me and the endless ribbon of asphalt stretching out in front of my headlights. I was tired, but I wanted to get home, so I kept going, sipping coffee and listening to old rock songs on the radio. About an hour into the drive, I saw someone standing on the shoulder, just outside the reach of my headlights. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light, maybe a sign or a mailbox. But as I got closer, I saw it was a man, maybe in his late 20s, wearing a dark jacket and jeans, his thumb out, his face hidden in the shadow of a baseball cap. I slowed down, debating whether to stop. I remembered all the stories, all the warnings, but something about the way he stood there, alone, in the cold, miles from anywhere, made me pull over. He jogged up to the car, his breath visible in the chilly air. I rolled down the window a crack. "You need a ride?" I asked. He nodded. "Yeah, if you don't mind. My car broke down a few miles back. I just need to get to the next town." I hesitated, but he looked harmless enough. I unlocked the door, and he slid into the passenger seat, thanking me quietly. Up close, he looked tired, maybe a little rough around the edges, but not dangerous. I told myself I was doing a good deed, helping someone out. We drove in silence for a while, the only sound the hum of the engine and the occasional song on the radio. I tried to make small talk, asking where he was headed, but he just said north and stared out the window. I noticed his hands were shaking and he kept glancing in the side mirror, as if he was looking for someone following us. After a few miles, I started to feel uneasy. The man hadn't said much, and the way he kept checking the mirror was making me nervous. I asked if he wanted me to drop him off at a gas station or somewhere specific, but he just shook his head. "Just keep driving," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I tried to laugh it off, but the tension in the car was growing. I noticed he kept fiddling with something in his jacket pocket, and I started to wonder if I'd made a mistake. I thought about pulling over and telling him to get out, but we were in the middle of nowhere, and I didn't want to make things worse. Suddenly, he turned to me, his eyes wide and desperate. "You have to help me," he said. "They're after me. If they catch me, they'll kill me." I gripped the steering wheel tighter. "Who's after you?" He shook his head. "I can't say. Just, please, don't stop. Don't let anyone pass us." I glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see headlights behind us, but the road was empty. I tried to calm him down, telling him everything would be okay, but he kept muttering to himself, rocking back and forth in the seat. After a few more miles, I saw a car parked on the side of the road ahead, its hazard lights flashing. As we got closer, the hitchhiker ducked down in his seat, pulling his cap lower over his face. "Don't stop," he hissed. "Just keep going." I did as he said, my heart pounding. As we passed the car, I glanced over and saw two men standing by the trunk, watching us. One of them raised a hand as if to wave us down, but I sped up, not daring to look back. A few minutes later, the hitchhiker sat up, breathing hard. "Thank you," he said. "You just saved my life." I didn't know what to say. I wanted to ask more questions, but I was afraid of the answers. We drove in silence for a while, the tension thick in the air. Eventually, we reached a small town. The hitchhiker told me to pull over by a diner. He got out, thanked me again, and disappeared into the night. I watched him go, feeling a strange mix of relief and unease. I sat in the car for a few minutes, trying to process what had happened. I thought about calling the police, but what would I say? That I'd picked up a scared man on the highway and now he's gone? I decided just to go home and forget about it. But I couldn't forget. That night I had trouble sleeping. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the hitchhiker's face, heard his desperate voice. I kept thinking about the men by the car, the way they'd watched us as we drove by. The next morning, I turned on the news and saw a story about a body found on the side of the highway, not far from where I'd picked up the hitchhiker. The police were looking for witnesses, asking if anyone had seen anything unusual. My blood ran cold. I called the tip line and told them what I knew, but I left out the part about the hitchhiker. I didn't want to get involved. A few days later, a detective called me. He asked about the night in question, if I'd seen anyone on the road. I told him about the car with the hazard lights, the two men by the trunk. He asked if I'd picked anyone up, and I hesitated, then lied. No, I was alone. I don't know why I lied. Maybe I was scared, or maybe I just wanted to put the whole thing behind me. But the guilt ate at me. I kept thinking about the hitchhiker, wondering if he was safe, if he'd made it wherever he was going. A week later, I got a letter in the mail. No address rating, just my name written in shaky handwriting. Inside was a single sentence. "Thank you for saving my life." There was no signature, no explanation. I stared at the letter for a long time, trying to decide if it was from the hitchhiker or someone else. I never heard from him again. The police never solved the case, and the story faded from the news. But I still think about that night, about the choices I made, about the stranger I let into my car. I wonder if I did the right thing, or if I just got lucky. Now, whenever I see someone hitchhiking, I keep driving. I tell myself it's safer that way, for both of us. But sometimes, late at night, I wonder what would have happened if I had made a different choice. I wonder if the hitchhiker is still out there, running from something, or someone. And I wonder if I'll ever really know the truth about what happened on that lonely stretch of highway.
If you've ever driven long distances at night, you know how the world changes after midnight. The roads empty out, the radio turns to static, and the darkness outside your headlights feels endless. My name is Lisa, and I used to love road trips. I loved the freedom, the sense of adventure, the feeling that anything could happen. But after what happened to me on a lonely stretch of highway in Nevada, I don't think I'll ever pick up a hitchhiker again. It was the summer after my sophomore year of college. I just finished finals and decided to drive cross-country to visit my best friend in California. I planned the trip carefully, mapping out every stop, every gas station, every motel. My parents worried, but I promised to check in every night and keep my phone charged. I was excited, nervous, and determined to prove I could handle it on my own. The first 2 days went smoothly. I made good time, listened to podcasts, and enjoyed the changing scenery. By the third night, I was somewhere in the middle of Nevada, miles from the nearest town. The sun had set hours ago, and the only light came from my headlights and the occasional distant glow of a truck stop. I was getting tired, but I wanted to make it to the next town before stopping for the night. That's when I saw him, a man standing by the side of the road, his thumb out, a battered backpack at his feet. He looked young, maybe early 20s, with messy hair and a faded jacket. I hesitated, remembering all the warnings, but something about the way he stood there, alone in the dark, made me slow down. I pulled over and rolled down the window. "You need a ride?" I asked. He nodded, his voice quiet. "Yeah, if you don't mind. My car broke down a few miles back. I just need to get to the next town." I glanced at the empty road behind me, then unlocked the passenger door. He climbed in, thanked me, and set his backpack on the floor. Up close, he looked tired, maybe a little scared, but not dangerous. I told myself I was doing a good deed. We drove in silence for a while. I tried to make small talk, but he gave short answers, staring out the window. I noticed he kept glancing at the rearview mirror, as if he was looking for someone. I started to feel uneasy, but I didn't want to be rude. After a few miles, he asked if I could pull over at the next gas station. I agreed, relieved to have a reason to stop. When we got there, he thanked me again and got out, heading inside. I filled up my tank, bought a coffee, and tried to shake off the strange feeling. As I was getting back in my car, I saw the hitchhiker arguing with another man in the parking lot. The other man was older, with a shaved head and a leather jacket. They were speaking in low voices, but I could see the tension in their body language. I thought about calling the police, but before I could decide, the hitchhiker walked away, disappearing into the darkness behind the station. I got back on the road, trying to put it out of my mind. But a few miles later, I saw headlights in my rearview mirror. The car followed me for miles, never getting closer, never falling behind. I started to panic, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I sped up, but the car matched my speed. I slowed down, and so did they. Finally, I saw a sign for a rest area and pulled off the highway, hoping to lose them. The car followed, pulling into the parking lot a few spaces away. I locked my doors and tried to call 911, but my phone had no signal. I watched as the driver got out, a man with a shaved head, the same one from the gas station. He walked toward my car, his face hidden in the shadows. I started the engine, ready to drive away, but he stopped a few feet from my window and held up his hands. "I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to talk." I cracked the window, keeping my hand on the lock. "What do you want?" He looked around, then leaned in. "That guy you picked up? He's dangerous. He's been hitchhiking up and down this highway for weeks. People have gone missing. I've been trying to stop him." I stared at him, unsure whether to believe him. "Why should I trust you?" He shook his head. "You don't have to. Just be careful. Don't pick up any more hitchhikers, and if you see him again, call the police." He walked back to his car and drove away, leaving me alone in the rest area. I sat there for a long time, trying to process what had happened. I thought about the hitchhiker, the argument at the gas station, the way he'd kept looking over his shoulder. I got back on the highway, my heart pounding. Every car that passed made me jump. I kept checking the mirrors, half expecting to see the hitchhiker's face. I made it to the next town and checked into a motel, double locking the door and pushing a chair under the handle. The next morning, I turned on the news and saw a story about a woman who had gone missing after picking up a hitchhiker on the same stretch of highway. The police were asking for information, warning drivers to be careful. My blood ran cold. I called the tip line and told them what I knew, describing the hitchhiker and the man from the gas station. A detective called me later that day, asking for more details. I told him everything: the ride, the argument at the gas station, the car that followed me. He thanked me and said they were investigating. I never heard from them again. I finished my trip, but the rest of the drive was a blur. I kept thinking about the hitchhiker, wondering if he was really dangerous, or if the man at the rest area was just trying to scare me. I'll never know for sure, but I do know that I was lucky. I could have been the one who disappeared. Now, whenever I see someone hitchhiking, I keep driving. I tell myself it's safer that way, for both of us. But sometimes, late at night, I wonder what would have happened if I had made a different choice. I wonder if the hitchhiker is still out there, waiting for his next ride. And I wonder if I'll ever really feel safe on the open road again.
There's a certain kind of fear that only comes when you realize you're truly alone with a stranger. My name is Darren, and I used to think I was a good judge of character. I'd picked up hitchhikers before, students, travelers, people down on their luck. I always figured I'd know if someone was trouble. But one night, on a back road in rural Pennsylvania, I learned that sometimes you don't see the danger until it's too late. It was early spring, and I was driving home from a late shift at the hospital. The main highway was closed for construction, so I took a detour through the countryside. The road was narrow and winding, bordered by thick woods and the occasional farmhouse. It was after midnight, and the only light came from my headlights and the pale glow of the moon. About halfway home, I saw a figure walking along the side of the road. It was a woman, maybe in her 30s, wearing a long coat and carrying a small duffel bag. She looked cold and tired, her hair plastered to her face by the drizzle that had started to fall. I slowed down and rolled down the window. "Need a ride?" I called out. She hesitated, then nodded. "If it's not too much trouble, my car broke down a few miles back." I unlocked the door, and she climbed in, thanking me in a soft voice. Up close, she looked exhausted, her eyes red and puffy. I asked where she was headed, and she said she just needed to get to the next town where her sister lived. I told her I could take her as far as the main intersection, and she nodded, clutching her bag tightly. We drove in silence for a while, the rain tapping against the windshield. I tried to make conversation, but she gave short answers, staring out the window. I noticed she kept glancing at the rearview mirror, as if she was afraid someone was following us. I started to feel uneasy, but I told myself she was just nervous. After a few miles, she asked if I could pull over so she could make a phone call. I agreed, pulling into a small turnout by the side of the road. She got out, walked a few steps away, and took out her phone. I watched her in the mirror, noticing how she kept looking over her shoulder, as if she expected someone to jump out of the woods. She finished her call and got back in the car, her hands shaking. "Sorry, I just needed to let my sister know I'm on my way." We drove on, but the tension in the car was growing. I started to regret picking her up, but we were miles from anywhere, and I didn't want to leave her alone in the rain. Suddenly, she turned to me, her eyes wide with fear. "Can you drive faster?" she whispered. "Please, I think someone's following us." I glanced in the rearview mirror, but the road behind us was empty. "I don't see anyone," I said, trying to sound calm. She shook her head. "You don't understand. He always finds me, no matter where I go." I didn't know what to say. I sped up a little, my heart pounding. I kept checking the mirror, half expecting to see headlights appear out of the darkness. A few minutes later, we reached the main intersection. I asked if she wanted me to drop her at the gas station, but she shook her head. "Can you take me a little farther, just until I'm sure he's not behind us?" I hesitated, but she looked so desperate that I agreed. We drove on, deeper into the countryside. The rain was coming down harder now, and the road was slick. I started to worry about getting stuck, but I didn't want to turn her away. Suddenly, she gasped and pointed ahead. "Stop! That's his car!" I looked where she was pointing and saw a dark sedan parked on the shoulder, its headlights off. I slowed down, unsure what to do. She ducked down in her seat, clutching her bag. "Please, just keep going," she whispered. I drove past the car, trying not to look at it. As we passed it, I saw a man sitting in the driver's seat, his face hidden in shadow. He didn't move, didn't even look at us. A mile down the road, the woman sat up, breathing hard. "Thank you. You have no idea how much this means to me." I nodded, still shaken. "Do you want me to take you to the police?" She shook her head. "No, he always finds me. The police can't help." We drove in silence for a while, the only sound the rain and the wipers. Finally, she asked me to pull over by a small church at the edge of a tiny town. She got out, thanked me again, and disappeared into the darkness. I sat there for a few minutes, trying to calm down. I thought about calling the police, but what would I say? That I'd picked up a scared woman who thought someone was after her? I decided to just go home. But as I pulled back on the road, I saw the dark sedan in my rearview mirror. It was following me, headlights off, keeping its distance. My heart started to race. I sped up, but the car matched my speed. I turned onto a side road, hoping to lose it, but it stayed with me, always just out of sight. Finally, I reached a well-lit intersection and pulled into a gas station. The sedan drove past, disappearing into the night. I waited a few minutes, then drove home, locking the doors behind me. The next morning, I turned on the news and saw a story about a woman who'd gone missing after being seen at a gas station in the next town over. The description matched the woman I'd picked up. The police were asking for information, warning that she might be in danger. I called the tip line and told them what I knew. A detective called me later asking for details. I told him about the woman, the sedan, the man in the car. He thanked me and said they were investigating. A few days later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, just my name written in neat handwriting. Inside was a single sentence: "Thank you for trying to help." There was no signature, no explanation. I never heard from the woman again. The police never found her, and the story faded from the news. But I still think about that night, about the choices I made, about the stranger I let into my car. I wonder if I did the right thing or if I just got lucky. Now, whenever I see someone hitchhiking, I keep driving. I tell myself it's safer that way, for both of us. But sometimes, late at night, I wonder if I'd made a different choice. I wonder if the woman is still out there, running from someone or something. And I wonder if I'll ever really know the truth about what happened on that lonely road.